All right, let's talk about this. Sean Spicer obviously isn't the only one who's been in the spotlight this week. Steve Bannon has also been in the spotlight after the president appeared to downplay his role in an interview with the New York Post. He told the paper, quote, "I like Steve, but you have to remember he was not involved in my campaign until very late." And the president went on to say in that interview that he is his own strategist. What is the significance of those comments?
I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. Remember, Steve Bannon's role is the White House chief strategist. And this is a tactic that we've seen used by this White House before, as questions have been kind of bubbling about campaign aides' connections with Russia. You saw Sean Spicer at one point distancing Trump from his other former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, saying, he only played a minor role in the campaign. Meanwhile, this was a gentleman who had run the campaign, run the convention at which Trump became the GOP nominee. It's just a really fascinating dynamic. Trump is somebody who has always run his businesses, his entertainment empire, in a very kind of chaotic way. He likes to pit different sides against one another. He likes to, reach out to a whole bunch of different voices, hear lots of different opinions, and kind of pit those people against each other to see who wins. But you've seen that now bubbling out into the open again and again and again, this distraction of these different factions in the White House. You have Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, against Steve Bannon, and how is this palace intrigue going to play out? It's really become kind of a dominating narrative of this White House, and it seems like the president has really had enough. What the president's done is basically tell them, knock it out, or else I am going to come in there and I'm going to solve this for you.
I also thought it was interesting when we let's talk about strategy. You just heard Sean Spicer there saying other military options when it comes to Syria are 100% on the table. There have been mixed messages coming from the Secretary of State, from the president himself, from other representatives of the administration. What is, and maybe this is the question the White House press corps has, are you getting a sense that President Trump has a long-term strategy to deal with issues like Syria, like North Korea, and the relationship that we have with Russia?
I mean, what the president likes to say is that his strategy is not to tell us what his strategy is, that he wants to keep people on edge. He wants to keep people guessing. He just doesn't want to be able to show his cards, that he's treating that as a strategic advantage. But the situation that creates now is that you've got allies, diplomats, folks across the world who are now looking at the United States, this country that they expect to be kind of this moral leader, this kind of guiding post, and saying, what are we supposed to be doing here? What's the message here? And so, the administration would spin this as kind of purposeful confusion, but you're kind of seeing this really, play out. You've got right now, for instance, the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, is in Russia right now. And the Russian foreign minister has kind of tried to jab the administration using this against them, saying, we don't know what you guys are doing. It's very confusing, the messages you're sending. And so it seems like the president here is kind of walking a very fine line in wanting to project confusion and maybe, not actually having a coherent foreign policy position here.
Do you get the sense when you talk to your sources, Jill, that sometimes the president's statements, either on Twitter or otherwise, leave those in his administration, they sort of leaves their heads spinning? If you are a cabinet secretary or someone else, you have a mission to go out, and just like the Secretary of State today is in Russia, and today the president decides to give an interview to a newspaper where he talks about what his ideas are when it comes to Russia. Or it just feels like there's many, many times when people are trying to do their jobs and they're trying to put the president's plans forward, that they're being undermined by other people in the White House, including the president himself.
I mean, the president's Twitter account is something that is definitely a source of contention in the White House, especially it seemed during the very early days of the administration when, there was a clear agenda that certain elements of the White House were trying to push, and then suddenly you had the president's tweets. I think even Sean Spicer has spoken publicly about waking up every morning, checking the Twitter account, kind of seeing where the president's headed today. It's, we're used to seeing White Houses managed in a different way. And when you have a president who, look, sometimes he'll be sitting up watching cable news, or he'll wake up very early in the morning and he'll see something and he'll react. And then you have the entire White House kind of scrambling to keep up with him. I think, probably the most repeated comment now from Spicer in the White House briefing room is, we'll let the president's tweets speak for himself. Again and again, they're forced to answer questions, to explain what the president meant. And sometimes that kind of is a distraction from the message that some elements of the White House would seemingly prefer to be pushing.
Jill Colvin of the Associated Press, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks for having me.